You are not supposed to look inside a bag that is not yours. The voice is not loud, not even close, but it cuts clean through the empty hallway like a line drawn in ink. Lena Whitmore freezes mid-step, the rubber sole of her sneakers squeaking faintly against the polished marble floor. The building is quiet at this hour, just past 11:40 p.m., the kind of silence that hums under fluorescent lights and distant HVAC vents. Her cart sits a few feet behind her, a yellow bucket half full of cloudy water, the scent of lemon cleaner hanging in the air. In her hand is a worn leather bag, dark brown, creased at the corners like it has lived a long life. It was sitting under a bench near the elevators, just there, like it had been forgotten or abandoned. Lena turns slowly. The hallway is empty. No footsteps. No shadow moving under the strip of light spilling from the emergency exit sign. Just her reflection in the glass panel across from her, shoulders slightly hunched, hair pulled into a loose bun that has started to fall apart after a long shift. She looks back at the bag. Her thumb presses lightly against the zipper. It gives with a soft metal whisper. She should zip it back. Drop it at the security desk. Walk away. That is the rule. That has always been the rule. But the bag is already open an inch. Just enough to see the edge of a thick envelope inside. Off-white, sealed, with a single line written across it in black ink. Her breath slows. The air feels colder all of a sudden, like the building noticed. She glances over her shoulder again, then pulls the zipper a little wider. The envelope slides out halfway on its own, as if it has been waiting. The handwriting is neat but rushed. If anything happens, do not trust anyone inside. Lena blinks. A faint ringing fills her ears, the kind that comes before a memory lands. 5 years ago. A desk. A manager standing too close. We found the files in your drawer. Her fingers tighten around the envelope. The paper crinkles slightly under the pressure. She swallows and exhales through her nose, slow and controlled, like she taught herself after everything fell apart. Not my problem. The words move through her mind without sound. She repeats them again, firmer this time. Not my problem. She pushes the envelope back into the bag, zips it shut, and holds it out in front of her like it might bite. The wheels of her cart squeak as she pulls it closer, then pauses. Her eyes drift back to the bench where she found it. Empty. Still. Waiting. Somewhere deep in the building, a door closes with a hollow echo. Lena shifts her weight, then walks toward the janitor closet at the end of the hall. Each step feels louder than it should. Inside, the room is small and dim, lit by a single bulb that flickers once before settling. She sets the bag down on the metal shelf beside a stack of folded rags. Her hand lingers on it for a second too long. Then she pulls it back, wipes her palm on her pants, and turns away. But she does not leave. She just stands there, staring at the door, listening to her own breathing. If you are still here with me, go ahead and hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you do not miss what happens next, and tell me in the comments what time it is where you are and where you are watching from. Lena closes her eyes for a brief second, then opens them again. The bag sits exactly where she left it. Quiet. Ordinary. And somehow not. The bag does not stay where she left it. It stays in her head. Lena moves through the rest of the floor on autopilot, dragging the mop in slow arcs that leave faint streaks of water catching the overhead light. Every few steps, her eyes flick toward the end of the hallway, toward the closed door of the janitor closet, like something inside might move on its own. It does not. The building settles into its usual rhythm again, printers cooling down, distant elevator cables humming up and down the shaft. Routine. Safe. That is what she has built her life around now. Routine keeps things from slipping. Routine keeps people from asking questions. She rings the mop, presses it back to the floor, and keeps moving. At 12:15 a.m., she clocks out for her break. Though break is a generous word for 10 minutes on a plastic chair in a room that smells like burnt coffee and bleach. She pulls her phone from her pocket, checks the time again like it might have changed, then sets it face down on the table. Her other hand slides into the pocket of her hoodie, fingers brushing the small spiral notebook she carries everywhere. She pulls it out, flips it open to a page half filled with careful pencil lines. A narrow building. 3 stories. Windows placed to catch morning light. She traces one of the lines with the tip of her finger, then stops halfway through. The line wavers slightly where her hand had hesitated earlier that night. She stares at it for a second, then closes the notebook. The memory comes without warning, like it always does when she lets her guard drop. Same smell of cleaning solution, different building. Brighter, newer, everything still untouched. She had stayed late that night too, organizing samples for a client presentation that was not even hers. Someone had to do it. That was how she used to think. Her desk had been neat, everything labeled, every file in place. She remembers the weight of the folder when she picked it up the next morning, heavier than it should have been. She remembers the look on her manager's face when he called her into the office. Not angry, not surprised, just certain. "We found the documents in your drawer." No raised voice, no hesitation, just a decision already made. She had opened her mouth, then closed it again. Across the room, the guy from procurement had not looked up from his screen. He had known. She had known he had known. But she had stayed quiet. Because speaking up meant explaining how she had seen him copying files he was not supposed to touch. It meant admitting she had stayed after hours, unsupervised. It meant stepping into something that would not end clean. So she said nothing. And nothing turned into everything. Her badge stopped working by noon. Lena exhales slowly and pushes the chair back with a soft scrape. The break is over. The present is easier to manage. It always is. When she steps back into the hallway, the lights seem harsher than before, like someone turned them up while she was gone. She walks past the closet without stopping, then slows. 2 steps later, she stops completely. The door is still closed. Of course it is. She reaches for the handle, hesitates, then pulls it open. The bag is exactly where she left it, sitting on the metal shelf, quiet and patient. She steps inside and shuts the door behind her, the clicks sounding louder in the small space. For a moment, she just stands there, listening to the hum of the light above her. Then she reaches for the bag. This time, she does not pretend she is only checking it. She sets it down on the shelf, unzips it fully, and pulls the envelope back out. The paper feels colder now. Or maybe her hands are warmer. She turns it over, presses along the sealed edge, then slides a finger underneath and breaks it open. The tear is clean, almost too easy. Inside, a small USB drive slips into her palm. Matte black, no logo. She holds it between her thumb and index finger, weighing it like it might tell her something. Not my problem. The phrase comes back, but it does not land the same way. It feels thinner now, like something worn out from too much use. She looks at the door, then back at the USB. Somewhere above her, an elevator dings. A pair of footsteps passes by in the hallway, then fades. Lena crosses to the old desktop computer tucked in the corner of the closet, the one security barely uses anymore. She presses the power button. The machine hums awake, slow and stubborn. She waits, arms folded, eyes fixed on the screen as it flickers to life. There is still time to stop, to put everything back, drop the bag at security, and walk out of this building like nothing ever happened. She plugs the USB in anyway. The screen goes black for a second, then a single video file appears. No title, no date, just a file that was never meant to be found by someone like her. Lena hesitates, her finger hovering over the mouse. Then she clicks. The video does not start with sound. It opens on a conference room, glass walls, a skyline behind it blurred by winter haze, and a man seated at the head of the table with his hands folded too neatly in front of him. Lena leans closer to the screen without realizing it, the faint buzz of the old desktop filling. The small closet. The man looks ordinary at first glance, mid-30s maybe, clean suit, no tie, the kind of face that blends into corporate hallways without leaving a mark. Across from him, someone stands just out of frame, voice low but urgent. "You are asking me to sign something that is not true." The camera angle shifts slightly, like whoever recorded it did not want to be obvious. Papers slide across the table. The seated man does not reach for them. He just tilts his head, patient, almost bored. It becomes true when it is documented. He says, calm, measured. Lena's fingers tighten on the edge of the desk. The tone lands somewhere familiar, not because she has heard those exact words before, but because she has felt them. That quiet certainty that does not need to raise its voice. On the screen, the standing figure hesitates. "I did not move those files." A pause. Then the man at the table exhales softly, like he has already heard enough. Someone has to take responsibility. The sentence sits in the air. Heavy. Final. Lena reaches out and pauses the video. The frame freezes on the man's face, his expression unchanged, composed in a way that feels deliberate. She studies it, searching for something she can name. There is nothing obvious. That is what makes it worse. Her reflection faintly overlays the screen, her own face ghosted over his. For a second, the two images blur together. She clicks the mouse again, and the video continues. The person behind the camera shifts, the angle dipping just enough to catch the edge of a laptop on the table. A company logo flashes into view for half a second before the shot moves again. Lena leans in, rewinds, plays it again. This time she catches it. Cole Logistics. The name sits in her mind like something she should have known already. She has seen it on delivery trucks, on boxes stacked in the loading dock downstairs. She reaches for the envelope again, fingers brushing the torn edge. If anything happens, do not trust anyone inside. Her eyes move back to the screen. Inside what? The company, the building, the room. The man in the video stands now, the chair sliding back with a soft scrape. Think about what you are risking, he says, not raising his voice. Not just your job. The camera cuts abruptly to black. The file ends. Lena does not move right away. The hum of the computer fills the space, steady and indifferent. She pulls the USB from the port and turns it over in her hand, the matte surface catching the weak light. It is lighter than she expected. Something that small should not carry this much weight. She slips it back into the envelope but does not seal it. Instead, she folds the top down once, then again, like she is trying to contain something that does not stay put. Her gaze drifts to the metal shelf where the rest of her things sit. A pair of gloves. A roll of trash bags. Her notebook. She reaches for the notebook, flips it open to a blank page this time, and sets the envelope on top of it. The edges do not line up. The envelope sits at a slight angle, interrupting the clean geometry she usually keeps. She picks up her pencil and, almost without thinking, starts sketching around it. Lines form quickly, sharper than before. Not a building this time. A room. A table. A figure seated at the head, reduced to angles and shadows. Across from him, an empty chair. She stops, lifts the pencil, then draws a small rectangle near the edge of the table. A laptop. She presses harder than she needs to, the graphite darkening the page. The tip snaps. The sound is small but final. Lena exhales and sets the pencil down. For a moment, she just looks at the page. Then she closes the notebook, trapping the envelope and the USB inside it. Out of sight. Not gone. Her hand rests on the cover, fingers splayed, as if holding it in place matters. Somewhere out in the hallway, footsteps approach, slow and measured. Not the quick pass of someone heading to the elevators. These steps stop just outside the door. A second passes. Then a knock. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just enough. Lena's hand tightens slightly on the notebook. She does not answer right away. The knob turns a fraction, then stops, like whoever is on the other side is waiting for permission they do not actually need. A voice follows, low, controlled. Hey, sorry to bother you this late. Lena lifts her eyes to the door. Her expression unreadable now. Did you happen to find a leather bag tonight? The words hang there, simple on the surface, but they press against everything she just saw. She shifts her weight, slides the notebook a few inches closer to herself without looking down, and finally speaks. Depends what is in it. There is a brief pause on the other side, just long enough to register. Then the voice again, slightly closer to the door. Important things. Lena glances once more at the notebook under her hand. At the outline she can feel through the cover, then back at the door. That is vague, she says, her tone even. Another pause. This one feels different. Like a recalculation. Yeah, the man says quietly. It kind of has to be. Lena does not move toward the door right away. The notebook stays under her palm, the faint outline of the envelope pressing up through the cover like it is trying to be remembered. On the other side, the man shifts his weight. The floorboards do not creak in this building, but something about the silence changes, like he is leaning closer to the frame. Look, he adds, voice softer now, I know it is late. I just need to know if it turned up. Lena finally steps forward and opens the door halfway, just enough to see him clearly. He is taller than she expected, maybe 6 feet, coat unzipped over a plain gray sweater, no badge clipped anywhere obvious. His hair is slightly out of place, like he has run a hand through it too many times. He does not look past her, does not try to peer into the closet. His eyes stay on her face, steady but not aggressive. That is what catches her. Most people in this building look through her, around her, at the cart behind her, or the clock on the wall. He looks at her like she is part of the conversation. Lena leans one shoulder against the doorframe, keeping her body angled so the inside of the closet stays hidden. You lose things often? She asks. He exhales a small breath that might be a quiet laugh, though it does not quite reach his eyes. Not like this. His gaze flicks briefly to the floor, then back up. It matters. The word lands between them, simple but weighted. Lena studies him for a second longer than is polite. Up close, there are details she did not notice in the hallway before. A faint crease between his brows that does not fully relax. A small nick on his knuckle, healing. He looks like someone who has not slept much, though he is trying to pass as if he has. What is in it? She asks again. He hesitates this time, just enough to register. Documents, he says, then adds. And something I should not have let out of my sight. Lena nods slowly, like she is considering whether that answer is worth anything. Behind her, the computer screen dims, the monitor slipping towards sleep. The reflected light fades from the metal shelf, taking the faint outline of the bag with it. Security desk is still open, she says. Lost and found usually ends up there. He tilts his head slightly, studying her the same way she studied him a moment ago. You already checked there? The question is casual on the surface, but it carries something underneath it, a small test. Lena shrugs one shoulder. Part of the job. He nods once, accepting the answer without pushing, but not entirely convinced either. The space between them settles into something quieter, not comfortable exactly, but no longer just an interruption. You work nights, he says, more observation than question. Someone has to, she replies. A faint smile touches one corner of his mouth, quick and gone. Yeah. He glances down the hallway, then back at her. If you see it, or hear anything, can you let me know? He reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a small card, holds it out, but does not step closer. Lena looks at it without taking it right away. The card is plain, white, no logo on the front. Just a name and a number. Adrian Cole. She does not react, not outwardly. The name settles somewhere in the back of her mind, brushing against the logo she saw on the screen minutes ago. She takes the card between two fingers, careful not to touch his hand. I will think about it, she says. He watches her for a beat, like he is weighing whether that is the best he is going to get. Then he nods. That is fair. He steps back, giving her space again, the way he did not earlier. Sorry to interrupt. Your shift. Happens, Lena replies. He turns to leave, takes a few steps down the hallway, then pauses and looks back over his shoulder. For what it is worth, he says, voice quieter now. If you found something that fell off, you would not be the only one. The words hang there, not quite an accusation, not quite reassurance. Then he continues walking, his footsteps fading into the building's low hum. Lena closes the door slowly, the latch clicking into place. She stands there for a second, the card still in her hand, then flips it over. Blank on the back. No company name. No title. Just a number. She presses it lightly against the notebook, then slides both into her hoodie pocket. When she turns back to the shelf, the bag sits where she left it, unchanged, but it does not feel neutral anymore. It feels like something that has already chosen a direction, even if she is not. Lena reaches for it again, fingers brushing the leather, then pulls her hand back, just enough to break contact. Important things, she repeats under her breath. Not quite a question, not quite agreement. Then she turns off the computer, the screen going dark, and steps out of the closet, leaving the bag behind for the first time since she found it, though not for long. Lena does not go back to the closet right away. She finishes the last stretch of the hallway slower than usual, dragging the mop in shorter strokes, the rhythm uneven. The card in her pocket presses lightly against her hip every time she steps. A quiet reminder she does not shake off. Around 1:10 a.m., she pushes her cart into the service elevator and hits the button for the ground floor. The doors slide shut with a soft metallic seal, cutting off the fluorescent buzz for a moment. In the enclosed space, the silence feels heavier. She reaches into her pocket, pulls out the card, turns it over again even though she already knows what is on both sides. Adrian Cole. Just a name. No title to hide behind. The elevator jerks once, then starts its slow descent. She watches the numbers change, then slips the card back into her pocket and exhales. When the doors open, the lobby is mostly empty. A A security guard sits behind the desk, half watching a small bank of monitors, a paper cup of coffee cooling beside him. He glances up as she rolls her card out. "Quiet night?" he asks. Lena shrugs. "So far." He nods, not really listening, and goes back to his screens. She keeps moving, past the glass doors that reflect the city lights in soft, broken lines. Outside, snow has started to fall again, thin at first, then steadier, catching in the glow of the street lamps. She pushes the door open with her shoulder and steps onto the sidewalk, the cold air cutting through the warmth of the building in an instant. Her breath shows in front of her, quick and visible. She does not usually step out during shift, but tonight the air feels necessary, like she needs something that does not smell like cleaning solution and recycled heat. She stands there for a minute, watching a bus pass at the corner, headlights slicing through the snow. Then she hears footsteps behind her, the door opening again. "You always take your breaks out here?" Adrian's voice carries a hint of surprise, like he did not expect to find her again so soon. Lena does not turn immediately. "Not always," she says, then glances back over her shoulder. He is standing just outside the door, coat pulled tighter now, hands in his pockets. Up close, the cold has colored his cheeks slightly, made him look less composed, more real. "You did not leave," she adds. He steps down onto the sidewalk, stopping a few feet away, keeping a careful distance. "I had a feeling I missed something," he says. "Or someone." The last word is softer, almost an afterthought. Lena watches him for a second, then looks back out at the street. "That sounds like a habit," she says. He lets out a breath that turns into a faint cloud in the air. "Yeah," he admits. "One I am trying to fix." The snow gathers on the shoulders of his coat, small white flecks that melt almost as quickly as they land. They stand in silence for a moment, the kind that is not entirely empty. Cars move past, tires hissing on wet pavement. Somewhere down the block, someone laughs, the sound carried briefly by the wind before it disappears. Adrian shifts his weight, then glances toward her. "You ever feel like a place looks different after midnight?" he asks. "Same walls, same people, but not the same rules." Lena huffs a quiet breath that could be a laugh if it had more warmth behind it. "Places do not change," she says. "People just notice different things when it is quiet." He nods, considering that. "That sounds like experience." She does not answer right away. Her eyes track a snowflake as it lands on the back of her hand and melts into nothing. "Something like that," she says finally. Adrian studies her profile, the way she keeps her shoulders slightly turned, never fully facing him. "You have been here long?" he asks. "Long enough," she replies. "Long enough to know when something is off." There it is again, that subtle push beneath the question. Lena glances at him, just briefly. "Long enough to know when to stay out of it," she says. The words land sharper than she intends, but she does not take them back. Adrian nods slowly, like he expected that answer even if he does not like it. "That is fair," he says. "Safer too." Lena shifts her stance, tucking her hands into her sleeves. "Safe is underrated," she says. He looks out at the street again, then back at her. "Depends on what it costs," he replies. The line hangs there, not heavy, but not light either. Lena feels it settle somewhere she does not want to examine too closely. She changes the subject without making it obvious. "You always carry cards with no company name?" she asks, pulling it from her pocket and holding it up between two fingers. Adrian's gaze flicks to it, then back to her face. "Only when I do not want the company to answer for me," he says. "Or when I am not sure it should." Lena studies him, the answer turning over in her mind. "That sounds complicated." He gives a small shrug. "It usually is." Another pause stretches between them, but this one feels different, less guarded, like the edges have softened just slightly. Lena looks down at the card, then back up at him. "If I saw something," she says slowly, choosing each word, "something that did not make sense, what would you do with it?" Adrian does not answer right away. He takes a step closer, not enough to crowd her, just enough to close some of the distance. "I would want the truth," he says, "even if it is inconvenient." Lena lets out a quiet breath, the corners of her mouth tightening. "People say that," she says, "until it is actually inconvenient." He does not argue. He just nods once, like he knows exactly what she means. "You are not wrong," he says, "but I am still asking." The honesty in that lands differently than the rest of his words. It is not polished. It is not rehearsed. It is just there. Lena looks at him for a second longer, then slips the card back into her pocket. I will think about it, she says again. But this time it sounds less like a deflection and more like a promise she has not decided how to keep. Adrian watches her, then gives a small nod. That is all I can ask. The wind picks up slightly, carrying a swirl of snow between them. Lena turns back toward the door, pushing it open with her shoulder. You should get inside, she says. You look like you are not dressed for this. Adrian glances down at his coat, then back at her, a faint smile pulling at one corner of his mouth. I have been told worse, he says. She does not smile back, but something in her expression shifts, just enough to be noticed. Good night, she says. Lena. The way he says her name stops her for half a second. She does not remember telling him. She looks back at him, a question forming, but he has already stepped back toward the sidewalk, the snow catching in his hair. Security desk, he adds lightly. They know everyone who comes through here. Lena watches him for a moment, then closes the door, the warmth of the building wrapping around her again. Inside, the air feels different now, like something has shifted just out of sight. She stands there, hands still on the handle, then lets go and turns back toward the hallway. The weight of the card and the notebook in her pocket no longer separate things, but part of the same decision she has not yet made. Lena does not head back to the upper floors right away. Instead, she lingers near the lobby, wiping down a row of chrome railings that are already clean, her motions slower than necessary. The notebook presses against her side, the envelope inside it no longer just an object but a presence she can feel without touching. Across the room, the security monitors flicker quietly, a grid of camera feeds showing empty hallways, closed conference rooms, elevators opening and closing without passengers. Ordinary. Controlled. She moves closer without meaning to, her eyes catching on one of the screens. The 22nd floor. The same hallway she had just left. The closet door shut. A figure steps into frame a moment later, walking with purpose, not checking corners, not hesitating. Adrian. He stops right in front of the closet, glances once down the hall, then pulls out a key card. Lena's hand pauses mid-wipe. The closet does not take key cards. It never has. But he slides the card along the panel beside the door anyway. A faint green light flashes. The lock clicks. He disappears inside. Lena's grip tightens on the cloth in her hand. The security guard does not look up. That system new? She asks, keeping her voice even, eyes still on the screen. The guard glances over, follows her gaze, shrugs. Some of the service closets got upgraded last month. Access control. Corporate request. Corporate. The word settles in her chest, heavier than it should. She nods once, like that explains enough, and steps back, though her attention stays fixed on the monitor. A minute passes. Then two. The closet door opens again and Adrian steps out, but something is different now. Not in what he wears, not in the way he moves, but in the way the hallway seems to respond to him. Another man appears at the far end, mid-40s, suit jacket still on despite the hour, phone pressed to his ear. He stops when he sees Adrian, lowers the phone without ending the call. We found it, the man asks, his voice carrying just enough through the silent feed for Lena to catch the shape of it. Adrian does not answer immediately. He walks toward him instead, measured, controlled. Not yet, he says finally. The tone is not the same as it was outside. It is sharper, cleaner, stripped of the small hesitations she noticed before. The other man frowns. We cannot afford delays on this, Adrian. The board is all ready. He stops himself, glancing at the camera, then back at Adrian. The word board lingers anyway. Lena feels it like a shift in the air. Adrian's gaze flicks up, straight into the camera for a fraction of a second, like he knows exactly where it is. Then back to the man in front of him. Then maybe the board should have handled it before it got this far, he says, voice low but firm. No raised volume. No need. The other man exhales, runs a hand along his jaw. We trusted the process. Adrian's expression does not change. That was the mistake. The man hesitates, then nods once, reluctantly. Keep me updated. He steps away, lifting the phone back to his ear as he disappears out of frame. Adrian remains where he is for a moment longer, the hallway stretching empty around him. He looks back at the closet door, then at the camera again, his eyes unreadable now. Then he turns and walks out of view. The screen goes back to stillness. Lena stands there, the cloth hanging loosely from her hand. Adrian Cole. Not just a name on a blank card. Not just someone who lost a bag. The way the other man spoke, the way the hallway seemed to bend around him without anyone saying it out loud. CEO. The word does not need to be announced. It is already there, in the way people adjust when he enters a space. In the way he does not ask for permission to open a locked door. Lena lowers her hand slowly, setting the cloth on the edge of the desk. Her reflection stares back at her from the dark edge of the monitor, layered over the frozen hallway feed. 5 years ago, she had stood in a different room, watching someone else decide what was true. She had stayed quiet then, let the system move without her. She reaches into her pocket, pulls out the card again, presses it between her fingers. The edges are sharper now, or maybe she is just holding it tighter. Her eyes drift to the elevator numbers above the doors, ticking upward, then back down. Somewhere above, the closet sits with the bag still inside. Not neutral anymore. Not just a lost item. Something placed. Something watched. Lena turns away from the monitors and starts toward the elevator, her steps steady now, no hesitation left in them. As the doors slide open, she catches her reflection once more in the metal panel, shoulders squared in a way they were not earlier. The elevator hums as it begins to rise, carrying her back toward the floor where the bag is waiting and toward the man who is no longer just a stranger asking questions in the cold. The elevator doors slide open with a soft chime, and Lena steps out before the light fully settles. The hallway looks the same as it did an hour ago, but it does not feel the same. The air is tighter, like something has already happened here, and she is just catching up to it. She walks straight to the closet, not slowing this time, and reaches for the handle. It is unlocked. Of course it is. Inside, the light hums faintly. The bag sits exactly where she left it, untouched, but the space around it feels smaller now, like it has been claimed. Lena steps in and closes the door behind her, the click sharper than before. She moves to the shelf, picks up the bag, and holds it for a second, her fingers pressing into the worn leather. Then she opens it, pulls out the envelope, and slips the USB back into her palm. The edges of it feel familiar now, like something she has already decided to carry whether she wants to or not. You came back. His voice comes from behind her, close enough that she does not jump, but close enough that she does not like how easily he got there. Lena does not turn right away. She slides the USB back into the envelope, folds it once, then sets it on the shelf with deliberate care. Only then does she face him. Adrian stands just inside the doorway, one hand still resting lightly against it, as if he had not fully committed to entering. Up close, there is less distance between who he was outside in the snow and who he is now, but the difference is still there. It sits in the way he watches her, measuring without making it obvious. You should not be in here, she says. It is not a warning, just a statement. Adrian lets the door close behind him, the space narrowing another inch. Neither should you, he replies, his tone even. Lena glances at the envelope on the shelf, then back at him. I work here. So do I, he says quietly. The words hang between them, not quite true in the way they sound. Lena studies him for a second, then nods once, like she is acknowledging the version of that statement he expects her to accept. That is one way to put it, she says. Adrian shifts his weight slightly, his gaze flicking to the envelope, then back to her face. You saw something, he says. Not a question. Lena does not answer immediately. She leans back against the shelf, crossing her arms loosely, not defensive, but not open either. You lost something, she counters. Adrian exhales, a small sound that carries more patience than frustration. That bag was not an accident. Lena's expression does not change, but something behind it tightens. No, she says. It was not. He watches her more closely now. Then you know what is in it matters. Lena tilts her head slightly. Matters to who? Adrian does not look away. To anyone who does not want to see someone else take the fall for something they did not do. The words land clean, deliberate. Lena's fingers press lightly into her sleeve, a small movement he might not notice if he were not looking for it. For a second, the room feels smaller again, the air thinner. You are assuming a lot, she says. Adrian takes a step closer, not enough to corner her, but enough that the space between them is no longer neutral. I am working with what I have, he says. And right now, what I have is you. A bag that should not have been opened, in a situation that is about to get very public if it is not handled right. Lena lets out a quiet breath, her gaze drifting past him to the door, then back. Public, she repeats. That is convenient. Adrian's brow tightens slightly. It is not about convenience. It never is, Lena replies. Her voice is calm, but there is an edge under it now, something that has been there longer than tonight. It is about timing, about who gets ahead of it first. Adrian studies her, something shifting behind his eyes, like he is recalibrating. You think this is about protecting the company? Lena does not answer that directly. Instead, she pushes off the shelf and moves a step closer to him, closing the distance on her own terms. I think you already know what it looks like when someone gets blamed, because it is easier than fixing the system that let it happen, she says. Adrian holds her gaze, not flinching. I do, he says. That is why I am here. Lena searches his face for a second, like she is trying to decide if that answer is real or just practiced. You had a whole building full of people to handle this, she says. Processes. Departments. Whatever you call them. Adrian nods once. And they failed. Or they worked exactly the way they were designed to, Lena says quietly. The line sits between them, heavy with something neither of them names out loud. Adrian looks at the envelope again, then back at her. If you have that file, he says, and you do nothing with it, someone else is going to carry that weight. Lena's jaw tightens just slightly. That is not new, she says. People carry things that are not theirs all the time. Adrian takes a breath, slower this time. You included? The question is softer, but it lands harder. Lena looks at him, really looks this time. And there is a flicker there, something that is gone almost as soon as it appears. She shakes her head once, small. That is not your concern. Adrian does not push that line further. Instead, he shifts his stance, giving her a fraction more space, though neither of them steps back. You asked me what I would do with the truth, he says. I would use it. Not bury it. Not redirect it. Use it. Lena's eyes move to the envelope again, then back to him. And what happens after that? She asks. Adrian does not answer immediately. The silence stretches just long enough to matter. That depends on whether the truth is enough, he says finally. Lena lets out a quiet breath, her gaze dropping for a second before lifting again. It usually is not, she says. Another pause. The kind that is not empty, just unresolved. Adrian nods once, like he expected that too. Then the question is not whether you should stay out of it, he says. It is whether you can. Lena looks at him, the words settling in a place she has been avoiding all night. Her hand moves almost without thinking, resting lightly on the envelope, feeling the shape of the USB through the paper. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The hum of the light fills the space, steady and indifferent. Then Lena pulls her hand back, just enough to break contact, but not enough to step away from the decision that is already forming. Lena does not answer him right away. The envelope sits between them on the metal shelf, thin, ordinary, carrying more weight than anything else in the room. The hum of the overhead light stretches out, filling the silence where words could go but do not. Adrian watches her, not pushing, not stepping back either. Just there, waiting without saying he is waiting. Lena reaches for the envelope again, this time without hesitation. Her fingers slide under it, lifting it off the shelf, the paper bending slightly where it has already been opened once. She turns it in her hands, eyes tracing the line written across the front. If anything happens, do not trust anyone inside. The words feel different now than they did an hour ago. Not a warning. Not just a warning. A direction. Her thumb presses lightly along the fold she made earlier. Then she opens it again, slower this time, like she is aware of the moment she is stepping into. The USB rests in her palm, small and unremarkable, like it has no business holding the kind of truth it does. She looks at it for a second, then past it, somewhere beyond the walls of the closet, beyond the building. 5 years ago, she had stood in a room where the truth was already decided before she spoke. She had chosen silence because it felt safer, because it kept things contained, because it meant she did not have to stand in front of someone and say, this is not right. The memory does not come back as a full scene this time, just fragments. The edge of a desk, a badge that stopped working, the sound of a door closing behind her that did not open again. Lena closes her hand around the USB, the edges pressing into her skin. When she looks up, Adrian is still watching her, but something in his posture has shifted. Less guarded, more focused. If I give this to you, she says, her voice steady but quieter than before. It does not stay between us. It is not a question. Adrian does not answer immediately. He nods once, slow, like he understands the weight of what she is actually saying. It should not, he says. Lena studies him for a second longer, then shakes her head slightly, almost to herself. No, she says. It really should not. She turns away from him, stepping past the narrow space of the closet, pushing the door open without waiting for him to follow. The hallway outside feels wider now, colder. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, indifferent. Lena walks straight toward the elevators, not checking if he is behind her. The envelope is still in her hand, the USB inside it now, but she does not put it away. Not yet. When the elevator doors slide open, she steps in and presses the button for the executive floor without looking down. The highest one, the one she has never had a reason to go to before. Adrian steps in just before the doors close, his presence filling the small space without crowding it. He does not ask where they are going. He already knows. The elevator rises in a smooth, quiet motion, the numbers ticking up one by one. Lena watches them change, her reflection faint in the metal panel, layered over the digital glow. She looks different, not in a way anyone else would notice, just enough that she does. When the doors open, the floor is dimmer than the others, the lighting softer, warmer. The carpet absorbs the sound of their steps as they walk out. At the end of the hallway, a glass-walled conference room glows faintly, a few figures still inside, silhouettes moving against the city lights beyond. Lena does not slow. She walks straight toward it, her grip tightening slightly on the envelope. Adrian falls into step beside her now, not leading, not following, just there. As they reach the door, Lena pauses for half a second, her hand hovering over the handle. Through the glass, she can see a man standing at the head of the table, the same posture, the same stillness she saw in the video. For a brief moment, the past and present overlap so cleanly it almost feels staged. Someone at the table glances up, noticing movement outside. The room quiets by degrees, attention shifting toward the door. Lena exhales once, slow, then pushes it open. The conversation inside stops completely. A dozen eyes turn toward her, taking in the uniform, the late hour, the fact that she does not belong in this space. No one says anything right away. Lena steps inside anyway, crossing the threshold like it does not matter. The man at the head of the table looks at her, confusion flickering across his face before it smooths into something more controlled. "Can we help you?" he asks, his tone polite, dismissive, practiced. Lena does not answer him. Not directly. She walks to the center of the room, sets the envelope down on the table, and slides it forward just enough that it stops within reach of everyone, but claimed by no one. The paper makes a soft sound against the polished surface. She does not explain what it is, does not announce anything. She just steps back, her hand leaving it there, open, visible, impossible to ignore. The room holds still for a second, then two. Someone shifts in their chair. Another leans forward slightly. The man at the head of the table looks down at the envelope, then back up at Lena, something sharper now behind his eyes. Adrian steps in beside her, not touching her, but close enough that the distance between them is no longer a question. No words pass between them. They are not needed. The decision has already been made. The envelope sits in the center of the table, the line written across it visible to everyone now. If anything happens, do not trust anyone inside. And for the first time since she found it, Lena does not feel like she is holding something that could pull her under. She feels like she has already stepped through it. No one reaches for the envelope at first. The room holds its breath in that quiet, suspended way where decisions start forming before anyone admits to them. The man at the head of the table finally moves, just enough to pull the envelope closer with two fingers, like it might carry weight beyond paper. He does not open it immediately. Instead, his eyes flick once toward Adrian, then to Lena, measuring something that no longer fits the version of the room he walked into tonight. Around the table, chairs shift, the soft scrape of fabric against carpet, the low murmur of people recalibrating without speaking out loud. Lena does not stay long enough to watch it unfold. She steps back, the distance between her and the table widening with each quiet step until she is at the door again. No one stops her. No one asks her name. That is the part that almost makes her pause, but she does not. She pushes the door open and walks out into the hallway, the softer lighting wrapping around her again like nothing has changed, even though everything has. Adrian follows a second later, the door closing behind him with a muted click that seals whatever is about to happen inside. They walk side by side for a few steps without speaking. The hallway stretches ahead, empty, calm, the city lights bleeding faintly through the windows at the far end. Lena's hands are empty now. The absence is noticeable, lighter than she expected. "That is it," she says after a moment, her voice low, not quite disbelief, not quite relief. Adrian glances at her, then back ahead. "For tonight," he says. It is not an answer that closes anything. It just acknowledges where they are standing. They reach the elevator and wait. The silence here is different than before, less sharp, more settled. Lena shifts her weight slightly, her shoulder brushing the wall, and looks at her reflection in the metal panel again. The lines of her posture have changed, subtle but real. When the doors open, they step inside together. The descent is smooth, the numbers ticking down one by one. Lena watches them, then looks at Adrian. "You knew," she says. Not accusing, just stating something that has been sitting there since the moment she saw him on the monitor. Adrian does not look away. "I suspected," he says. "There is a difference." Lena nods once, accepting that distinction without fully agreeing with it. "And now?" she asks. He takes a breath, slower this time. "Now it depends on what people do when they cannot pretend anymore." The elevator reaches the ground floor. The doors slide open. The lobby is quieter than before, the security guard gone, the monitors still glowing softly in the background. Lena steps out, the familiar space feeling slightly unfamiliar, like it belongs to a version of her that is already a step behind. They walk toward the glass doors, the snow outside still falling in steady, silent lines. When they step out onto the sidewalk, the cold hits again, sharp and clean. Lena exhales, watching her breath disappear into the air. Adrian stands beside her, hands in his coat pockets, looking out at the street the same way she does. "You are going to be in this now," he says after a moment. Not a warning, just a fact. Lena tilts her head slightly, considering that, then shakes it once. "I was already in it," she says. "I just did not act." He glances at her, something like recognition passing through his expression. "That is not the same thing," he says quietly. Lena looks at him, really looks this time, then lets out a small breath that almost becomes a smile, but does not quite. "It is to me," she replies. The wind shifts, carrying a swirl of snow between them. For a second, neither of them moves. Then Lena reaches into her pocket and pulls out her notebook. She flips it open, the page with the unfinished sketch still there, the broken pencil line cutting across the table she had drawn earlier. She studies it, then closes the notebook again, tucking it back into her pocket. Not erased, not fixed, just carried forward. Adrian watches her, then nods once, like he understands something she did not say out loud. "You heading home?" he asks. Lena looks down the street, then back at the building behind them. "Yeah," she says. "Eventually." He gives a small, almost amused exhale. "That sounds familiar." She shrugs lightly, pulling her coat tighter around her. "I am working on it." There is a pause. Then Adrian reaches into his pocket and pulls out another card, identical to the first. He does not hand it to her this time. He just holds it between his fingers for a second, then slides it back into his coat. "You already have what you need," he says. Lena meets his gaze, something steady settling there now. "We will see," she replies. The light at the corner changes, cars moving through the intersection in a slow, steady flow. Lena steps off the curb first, crossing the street without looking back right away. Halfway across, she does glance over her shoulder. Adrian is still there, watching, but not following. Not yet. She turns forward again and keeps walking, her steps even, her pace unhurried, the snow collecting lightly on her shoulders before melting away. Behind her, the building stands the same as it always has, glass and steel and quiet decisions made behind closed doors. But somewhere inside, something has shifted. And this time, she did not stay silent. If this story stayed with you, maybe share what you would have done in her place and follow along for more. Thank you.